Here's something I did not know, and I'm just going to ask you. And if you've read the article, then you already know. But if you had to guess, what city in the United States has the nearly double the national average asthma rate? What city do you think that would be?
Los
Atlanta,
Angeles.
Georgia.
Or
Coal-fired Pennsylvania.
West Virginia.
Right?
And these are all great answers, except the answer is New Haven, Connecticut.
Ah,
Wow.
I swear to you,
I believe you.
14.6% of school-aged children in New Haven, which is nearly double the average rate of 7.9% of asthma. So, as you can imagine, the state of Connecticut is huge behind the plan for a prospective future United States president and his female running mates, who I'm not going to name names so as not to appear biased. They are pledging to achieve 100% clean energy economy and reach net zero emissions no later than 2050. And one of the ways they're going to approach this, and remember, I said 14.6% of school-aged children in New Haven. The best way to help children breathe easier is to give them electric school buses. And so 500,000 school buses, American-made, zero-emission, all electric. And the great thing is, as we've always said, buses drive a very prescribed route. We know exactly how far they're going to drive every single day. You add a buffer for, driving around or, going to get washed or, or whatever. But every night we know that these buses can be parked at the school and they can be charged. I mean, think about it. We're talking New Haven, Connecticut. We know that it gets cold in Connecticut during the school year. So kids are right now riding in these diesel burners, and we know that buses are not clean diesel, as though there were such a thing. So the kids are in the buses with the windows up and the heat cranked and the diesel fumes just permeating the inside of the bus, and the kids are just sitting in a diesel, incubation tank, and that is horrible. These kids need to these kids need to ride in an electric bus so they can breathe easier. And this is one of the plans of the Biden-Harris, hopefully the presidency, is to bring electric school buses to American schools. And this will do two things, of course. This will do two things, or three things, or four things, or, the number just keeps growing.
Yeah.
It'll help the kids breathe easier. It will bring the amount of pollution caused by diesel burning school buses down. It will build American jobs because they're pledging these will be American-made buses. It'll bring us towards a greener, greener transportation, net zero. It just the hits just keep on coming. So I honestly hope that this plan can be established. And by which I mean in 7 days, I hope that the people who are planning this can be put in such a position that they can make this happen, because this would be an amazing thing for the kids, for the economy, for the environment, for everyone.
I was reading an article this morning from the local power utility that was bragging about how Virginia is about to go EV for their school buses, and it had a couple of photos. And I didn't read it too deeply, but it seemed cool.
Yeah. It's a no-brainer. They're on a very closed loop. They don't go very far every day. Stop burning diesel around kids, and they sit in front of the schools and idle. For the love of God.
That's to keep those heaters going.
I used to the last school bus I took when I first moved to California in the late 70s had an exhaust leak.
Ooh.
So the exhaust would go into the cabin of the bus, and every day I arrived at school with like this piercing migraine, which was a little extra incentive for me to get my own transportation and get out of the school bus, because that was very unpleasant.
So in the Virginia article, they talked about the ability to use them as grid storage. So when they're not running routes like during the summertime or yeah. So while they're sitting there at the school or at the depot, they could make their money back and pay for themselves.
Right, and then you could install vanadium flow battery, energy storage.
Oh, if they crashed, you don't want the toxic fluid on the children. But they could use some of that cash back to buy the optional air conditioner.
What drives us is not responsible for listening to any of these guys' suggestions about putting vanadium batteries into school buses.
Do not power your school buses with sulfuric acid.
Listen to her.
It's a good plan, and I'm looking forward to it because, especially when you consider, for most of the kids who actually have to take school buses, they're usually dealing with a whole lot of other societal impacts on their education. They don't, obviously, their parent can't drop them off, so they're probably doesn't have a parent that has the free time to take them in. A lot of times they're coming in from outlying areas, which means access to things like internet, and they might be having the impact of environmental racism in their neighborhoods. This is one less thing that's going to create a physical damage to their bodies and could impact them as they grow up into adults. And I think it's a brilliant idea. It's a wonderful thing. And it's taking far too long for us to pull a correction on how much we're polluting around our children. Then again, we have people taking kids around to, massive events with no masks. So I don't know. Sometimes I wonder if we think we can just make another one.
Yeah.
And even if you're very selfish and you don't give a shit about children, these things are running through your neighborhood, so they're affecting your air. So if you want to just 100% me, this is good for you too.
Pet.
Yes, exactly.
Your beloved pet. Yes.
Yes. And like I said, there's 500,000 school buses in the United States. And I mean, that's huge.
Big, stinky, diesel-powered school buses.
Yeah.
Really can't imagine there's so many, but yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. In the article in the Connecticut Post, it said 500,000. And so I ended up at newgeography.com and looking at statistics of buses, and they said 480,000 in 2014. So, yeah, 500,000 in the United States.
Yeah, because they have substitute and spares.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
But when you consider how many municipalities, especially large ones like San Francisco, have electrical municipal transit buses, I was very surprised those old diesel buses were still around.
It is.
Now, I have to say, one of the thinking of what Georgia said about, with electric, and green public transportation, why there are, diesel school buses, which is a great point. But, the question comes out of who owns the school buses. I believe there are some drivers that own their own bus and they contract with the school to drive. And some of the buses are actually owned by the school corporation. And as we know, that many efforts have been done in the United States to defund school corporations as much as possible.